All right. Well, that is something. Let's see if this is actually making any noise. That'd be good. Oh, I guess I would have to turn my sound up. Yeah. All right. Well, looks like it is making noise. So, hello everybody. A little impromptu live here. Just decided to come live here on the Hello Composers channel because, every once in a while, things happen with software that I think really help composers take another step with especially free tools. I am all about free tools here. I really like when composers of any kind of composer can find a tool that's going to help them. And Logic Pro 11, which is maybe a DAW that many of you have, and if you don't have, you should consider Logic Pro 11 because it is a good DAW for $199 forever, and so especially on the PC side, on the Mac side, not necessarily the iPad. On the iPad version is a monthly deal, but I really like Logic Pro 11. I loved it for a long time. Now I have some problems. I have to be honest with you with the Logic Pro 11 side of things. It gets on my nerves a little bit with some of the new quote AI quote session player things. But with those things, with those AI and session player things, has come two new sounds that I think are very, very helpful. And if you are someone who only has Logic, you're going to be in a good place for having a decent piano sound and some better bass sounds. What they've done is slowly increment and bring up new sounds for Logic, and some new sounds which I think are pretty good, especially this studio piano sound that I'm playing right now. This is called Studio Grand. It's part of the quote-unquote AI session players thing, but you know what? Let's just not talk about AI session players. Let's not talk about AI at all. Let's just talk about having a better piano sound to play when you're in your DAW, especially when you're in Logic. And when you're in Logic, if you remember, I did a video recently about different pianos, different free pianos, and I'll try to remember to put that up here at some point or in the links below if you want to see a bunch of free pianos that you can get. And I included a bunch of Logic pianos, especially the Yamaha Grand, which I thought was pretty good. And it was okay. It wasn't really good, comparable to any bigger piano, but I thought it was okay. And especially, I thought it was okay coming free with Logic. Well, now, Logic has included what they call Studio Piano. And you find Studio Piano over here you don't go to the library, you just go over to this green place right here. Everything is green in Logic now, by the way. All buttons, everything, all green. It's all green now. One of the things I don't love about it, but if we look down here, we'll see all the instruments that Logic has over here on the left side. And we've had for a long time studio strings and studio horns, and I've talked about them also in another video, how you can kind of use those to do some really nice orchestral things due to articulations, which we're going to talk about here in a little while. But right now, first, I want to talk about Studio Piano, which is right here. And when you call it up, you basically, let me turn this off because this is basically what it looks like right here. It looks like this right here. You get the Studio Grand. Actually, a lot of times it'll come up with the one mic, which is not something I like to use. I like to use the Studio Grand setting here on the piano. It's got a beautiful picture of a grand. It's got 3 different mic type of settings. Now, you have Studio Mix A, or Studio Mic A. It's very nice, but you have Studio Mic B, or stereo might be. Why do I keep saying studio? Maybe a little brighter. And then you have mono mic, which doesn't interest me at all. But what I do like doing is turning both of these A and B mics on and getting a very full sound. Now, I'll tell you one thing I have done. I've gone into Logic's EQ, and I have EQ just some top end on this piano. I know that's a lot, but I wanted it to be a little brighter as I was playing today. And so this is the Studio Grand, and I think it's very usable. I've been using it a little, especially when I am outside of this studio and I am on a laptop or something and I am doing some composing and I need a decent piano. This is going to do it. This is going to be pretty much all you need to, to play. Hey, Nick B, I see you there. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Nick says, very nice tone. I think so too. I think it's got a really nice tone to it. I think that, I think it's got a really nice, let me see where I want to put you, Nick. Nick, where'd you go? Okay. I have broken the machine here. So thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's got a very nice round tone. You know, if you've watched me on any of my channels, I am a fan of the keyscape pianos. That's kind of my favorite. And I love a round Yamaha tone. I just got to say, I'm a Yamaha person. And my T is way over there. How am I going to get to my T? All right, I'm going to have to go off camera, get to the T. Because, it's not a podcast with me without T. Although this isn't a podcast. All right. I just wanted to come on and talk about these pianos. So, first of all, we do have this nice Studio Grand. And there's really not much to it. There are a few things I could tell you about here. One of the things you can up the pedal noise. So, I'm not sure you can hear that, but I'll turn this up to 100. I do sometimes like to put a lot of pedal noise on solo piano recordings when I'm doing compositions that require a real sounding piano. Having that piano body noise of the that the pedal gives you, I think is just, it adds realism. Another thing that I really like, and I've kind of got up on here, is the key noise. And listen. You'll be able to hear it a little bit more on a later keyboard, but it's got a lot of a few nice features. I haven't really fooled too much with release samples or sympathetic res, but I just think it's got a great sound. If it seems too bright to you, I do have bright a little too much, probably a little too much of this on, probably. And even if we wanted to dig in, it really digs in okay, really. got some nice body to it. It really does. Nick says, Keyscape is my go-to at home. Mine too. And I got to make these a little smaller here. And he says, but my church rig uses Arturia's V2, which is pretty lightweight. Yeah, it really is a decent, it's surprisingly how good this is. I don't know why this done. But it doesn't drop away too fast. So even if you're doing some ambient with that pedal. And that's one reason why I wanted to do this video, is because I felt like that, you know, there's people don't really know about this piano, and I know some people have been talking about it on when they've been reviewing Logic, but for me, piano is a big deal. So if I am stuck and all I have is Logic, as long as I have this, now it's important to have an 88-note controller when you're trying to compose piano music, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to compose in a real piano-y way, because I have a 61-note synth controller, and it's fine, but you can't dig in like you can on a piano. You can't play like you can on a piano. So let me show you a few other things about this piano. It's got, if we took off both of these, it does have a mono mic, like I said. Might have some uses and some kind of unique recordings, but doesn't do much for me. Studio B is much, stereo mic B is much brighter, and stereo mic A. I kind of like both of them on. All right, now it does have two other pianos inside this, and by the way, it still does have the Yamaha piano and all its old pianos. Logic is great about old. It did replace one, and I think it replaced it with this Concert Grand here, which I'm not fond of, but I'll show it to you. If you're like, where's the volume? I'm like, I don't know. It's at full volume. So it just, it feels a little, I don't know. It's not anywhere as interesting as the Studio Grand. So I'm not really crazy about this. I don't know if this is supposed to be a Bosendorfer, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it kind of replaced the Bosendorfer piano that they have. Let's take a look. Inside their pianos, if we move this for a second, you've got, well, this is, actually we would probably need to go to the sampler to see the pianos, because they don't even call them the same thing now. They've changed the piano sounds. It used to be Yamaha piano. Here's legacy pianos. Okay, so although they do have it all, there's a Bosendorfer. Here's the Steinway. Even that Steinway sounds better than the Concert Grand, in my opinion. And here's the Yamaha Grand. Actually, the Yamaha Grand is what feels like that Concert Grand. And it used to be my favorite Grand on this piano. Or on Logic. So these are all still there if you need them, but you're going to want to use, for sure, you're going to want to use the Studio Grand, because I think that is the best piano. So let's see if I can get back to it without too much trouble. I'm just going to reset this channel strip and bring back Studio Grand. Like I said, you can just go down, and Studio Piano has its own module, it's its own program. And get rid of the instruments by hitting Y. We'll bring this back over here. And that should put us back kind of here. And like I said, it always comes up with this one mic solution. Which is fine. But I kind of like the fullness of A and B together, personally. Now, one last thing to show you here on the piano. It has the Studio Grand, the Concert Grand, which, like I said, feels like that Yamaha Grand, actually, if I put them side to side, and then the Studio Grand one mic. But then it has a very interesting vintage upright, which I have used, actually, already in a track. And again, it has the same kind of mics. You could even go to the mono mic. That might be interesting for some useful things, the mono mic here. But again, you're going to have the B. And then you have the A. All of them are a little on the dark side, so to speak. But what really is interesting is when you turn up this key noise and you play the vintage upright. And those upper notes are cool. A lot of character to this piano. Listen to the note offs. So you can turn that key noise way up. You could turn your pedal noise up, and you could have just a noisy old upright. What if we just turned the mono mic on and played it? Not quite as interesting because you don't get the definition of all the key noise and the pedal noise. So, very interesting piano to me, I think. And yeah, it's got a really nice sound, the upright, and I really enjoy it. So that is the studio piano. And if you have Logic and you don't have Keyscape or Piano Tech or anything like that, you're going to be in a pretty good shape to do some things. I think this is equal. This piano reminds me a little bit of like Grandeur and some of the Native Instruments pianos, Noir and things like that. It's, of course, a very stripped down version. It's kind of like their mastering tool that they've got now. It's a very stripped down version kind of Ozone, basically. And it's not going to work right now. And it's another thing that bugs me because it's always on my master. I don't like it always being on my master. But anyway, because I don't use it anyway. And I don't use Ozone either. So that's the first thing I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the studio piano. The second thing I want to talk about today, and you might be saying, Eric, why are you live? And I would say, well, first, because Nick needs something to do today. But the second thing I will say is I just don't have time to make a lot of videos. And so my goal moving forward is to try to do a live video on this channel that's helpful every Wednesday at noon. and of course to try and get a video out every Friday at noon on Make Music Income, so that I can continue to get stuff out without spending hours and hours and hours coming up with material and coming up with a lot of editing and all that kind of stuff that I have to do to get a video to come out, because I have at least 5 videos already recorded that have just been sitting because I haven't had time to edit them, that are interviews or whatever. And so it's terrible. I've got to, so going live is the solution a lot of times to show things, that talk about things that I want to talk about. All right, so next thing I want to do, and let me know down below if you like this kind of format. If it's too rambly for you, let me know. I'll edit up a little bit of it probably, but probably not. My goal here, though, was to just sit here and really play this piano. Now, the second thing I want to do, and I'll have this time stamped, but the second thing I want to look at is the studio bass. Now, again, this is another module that now comes with Logic. You have studio strings and studio horns. We've always have. You had studio piano that we just talked about. And now you have studio bass. And studio bass basically is what comes up when you can get it by calling up your session players. And when you call up the bass player, you might get that. But I would recommend, rather than doing that and having to see notes that it just creates out of nowhere for no apparent reason, is to go to your instruments and just dial up studio bass. And when you do, it will look something like this. It'll start with the default preset, and it actually starts with the classic bass, which looks like this. This is pretty cool, especially if you don't have a dedicated bass program, or, again, Native Instruments bass programs probably would be at the next level past this, and then something like Trillion, which is what I use, or other bass programs that are very, very, very detailed. But this is pretty detailed, I have to tell you. I mean, I'm pretty shocked about this, and the main reason I'm shocked about this, in my previous videos where I talked about studio strings and studio horns, I talked about articulations. And who would have thought that Logic would put in a studio bass instrument filled with articulations? There's more articulations here for this bass than there is for strings and for horns. There is so much stuff going on. Grace notes, slides, dead notes, what else? Hammer-ons, and all sorts of things. And watch right here in this section. Let me move this. Watch. I got to change my little thing here. We really don't need to see that. Watch what happens in this section, the last played section, as I play this bass. Look at these articulations that it's doing. If I'm just, it kind of even, as I play each note, it goes back and forth between the index and middle finger. So if I go, let's not go below E, just for realistic sake, but and you've got different tones you can dial in. You've got some definition you can dial in. You can mute it as much as you want. You can change the playing style to pick instead of finger, or slap. Hear those hammer-ons? This is not the keyboard to be playing bass on. And plus I'm dealing with a little bit of some kind of delay here. But anyway, what I want to show you was you've got basically 6 different basses. You've got the 60s bass, which you see a lot of times in different things. You've got the rock bass. You've got session bass, which is green for some reason. Everything's green in Logic. Now, watch what it's doing on the frets. So if I walk down, it's going to just do you can do hammer-ons just like on a real bass as long as you are on the same string. But it'll do fingers if you're moving to another string. From the middle finger to the index finger in a very real way that a bass player would play the strings. It's really nuanced for just a bass instrument that they added in. And maybe they did that because they've added in this session player stuff and they're trying to make it sound a little bit more realistic. So session, and then we have modern, which is another bass. And that treble is not even all the way up, and it's pretty trebly. Of course, I've got the definition all the way up. And then we've got American upright, which is the only upright it has, which is fine. I mean, it's nothing special for an upright. I mean, of course, I have Trillion, and upright bass happens to be one of the easiest of all the samples to do is upright bass, and I think this is fine. Pull-offs, standard. It's going to do some hammer-ons and stuff like that. I mean, it does a lot of stuff. You can turn the noises way up, which I like to do on the bass. It's not very noisy. You can hear some noise. Let's put some growl attack on. So I think this is just a fantastic plugin if you are in need of bass and you are wanting some better bass sounds. Well, Logic has it, and it's waiting for you in Logic 11. And I think this, I know that there are certain things in Logic 11 that require an M1, but this isn't one of them. The new bass and piano sounds, these are sounds that you can have right now, and you can be using them and playing them. And so anyway, that's just kind of all I wanted to show you today. I wasn't really wanting to stretch this out. I just wanted to show you these sounds, but mainly show you these plugins and show you that you can get by going down here and just selecting these are basically the only two, I believe. These are the only two new instruments that have come in. Well, Sample Alchemy is new. I don't even know what that is. But we've got studio bass and studio piano. These are brand new things that Logic has put in. Now, if we could only get, they've got also studio horns, which I love, but I wish they would put in a French horn in the studio horns. And maybe a euphonium. That's asking a little much. But French horns in the studio horn section would be super great if they would put that in, because in the horns we've got trumpet, we've got trombone, we've got bass, trombone. Tuba would be nice. I mean, there's a nice sampled tuba in Logic, but it'd be great to have a tuba with all the articulations that we get with the bass trombone. And you get all of these articulations. I think there's a little bit more articulations in here with some of these. The slides and grace notes and things like that are a little different than they were before. So dead notes and stuff like that inside of, or are we still in the bass thing? Let's see what the dead note sounds like. Yeah, it's still calling up it's confused. It thinks it's the horns. Let's call up studio horns again. It's still bringing up all these. That's not a grace note. So that's a little bug, looks like, in here. But you've got all these instruments in here in the single instruments of horns. I just wish we had tuba and French horn as well. And then the other thing, of course, is we've got studio horns, we've got studio strings, we've got studio bass and piano now. It'd be really nice to have some studio winds, flute, clarinet, bassoon. That'd be really nice to oboe, English horn. That'd be really nice to have, Logic. And it would make your suite complete of studio strings and studio horns. Just saying, that's just me. I don't know if anybody else uses any of these things, but I use them all the time when I'm composing inside of Logic because sometimes the Logic strings, especially their spiccatos and their pits, are going to have a little bit more bite than a lot of libraries do, and so I mix them with other libraries, and so that comes in very handy especially when I'm composing classical stuff. Nick says, thanks for doing this today. I have been waiting till I'm done with my current project. Yeah, you should. I've seen no issues, Nick, with updating into Logic 11, really. The only issues is it does change a little bit of the coloring. I'm not really a fan of all of the new, like, animated, or I should say cartoony looking icons, and the green is a really disturbing shade of green now, and I don't know what's happened, and then the mastering program, always sitting on your mastering bus, you can't get rid of it. It does kind of work, and it's pretty good. It's decent. If you don't have ozone, if you don't have a way to master, it might work for you. If you know what you're doing, and there's some great tutorials out there about the mastering program. But that's just what I want to share. Don't want to keep this going too long. Thanks so much for watching. And Nick, thanks for being here. Thanks for anybody else who stopped by. And I hope that you have enjoyed this little look at Logic Studio Piano and Studio Bass. I think they're pretty decent instruments, and there seems to be a little bit of care that has gone into them. So that is my best thing that I can say about Logic 11. I just use if you look, I have my same, my little interface here. This is what I use. I don't really do much of anything else. I don't put a lot of stuff. This is my template. Usually it has an instrument and an audio, and I start there. So I don't have to look at all the other stuff that comes up with Logic if I don't want to, and I just use it in a very simple way. All right, everybody, that's it for me today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time here on Hello Composers, and I hope you have a great day today. And tell me if you like this, and if so, we'll do some more. See you later. Peace.